Coming up on The World Today. Governor Andrew Cuomo rings opening bell to cheers from mask-wearing brokers as New York Stock Exchange trading floor reopens. Spain declares 10-day official mourning for coronavirus victims. Plus, a junior minister in the Scotland office resigns over the handling of Dominic Cummings' breaking of the lockdown by travelling to help with childcare. Hello and warm welcome to the programme. I'm Teniola Shoboali. And with that, the New York Stock Exchange is open. Governor Andrew Cuomo rang in the start of the trading day after a 2-month closure, but under new measures, one of which is that only a quarter of the normal number of traders will be allowed to return to work. Traders must also avoid public transport, wear masks and follow strict social distancing rules, with newly fitted transparent barriers to keep people apart. New York City has been hit hard by the coronavirus pandemic, with some 200,000 cases and more than 20,000 deaths. Now, a global pledging campaign has raised more than $10.4 billion for the development of vaccines and therapies against COVID-19. The EU Commission's President, Ursula von der Leyen, says the funding milestone shows the world is demonstrating solidarity in tackling the pandemic. The appeal, which was launched by the EU Commission earlier this month, is designed to ensure that affordable vaccines and treatments are available worldwide. The United States and Russia did not take part in the initiative. China, where the virus originated in December, was represented by its ambassador to the EU at the May summit.
The World Health Organization is warning of a second wave of COVID-19 infections if lockdown restrictions are lifted too soon. Dr. Mike Ryan says countries where cases are declining should be using this time to develop effective trace and test regimes to ensure a downwards trajectory so as to avoid an immediate second peak.
I think right now, countries in Europe, countries in North America, many other countries around the world in Southeast Asia have to continue to put in place the public health and social measures, the surveillance measures, the public health measures, the testing measures, and a comprehensive strategy to ensure that we continue on a downward trajectory and that we don't have an immediate second peak.
In Uganda, lockdown restrictions are easing out with private cars expected back on roads and shops and restaurants reopening. But everyone is encouraged to adhere to the wearing of face masks in public and physical distancing.
With more than 5.5 million COVID-19 cases and over 346 deaths worldwide, scientists across the world are working frantically to find a vaccine and treatment. In a promising development, a drug treatment that appears to shorten recovery time for people with coronavirus is being made available on the National Health Service in the UK. Remdesivir is an antiviral medicine that was originally developed to fight Ebola. UK regulators say there is enough evidence to approve its use in selected hospital patients. Meanwhile, the latest UK figures for COVID-19 deaths are the lowest for 6 weeks, with 4,210 registered in the second week of May. Deaths in care homes in England and Wales accounted for almost half of the total number. Over in Latin America, following the Trump administration's decision to bring forward new travel restrictions on Brazil by 2 days, Brazilians scramble to make last-minute arrangements to get into the U.S. The restrictions apply to foreign nationals who've been to Brazil in the last 14 days. Brazil has the second highest number of coronavirus infections behind the U.S. and the sixth highest number of deaths in the world. Meanwhile, Brazil says it won't change its recommendation to use the malaria drug to fight coronavirus, even though the World Health Organization has suspended trials of hydroxychloroquine because of concerns that the drug could cause heart problems in patients and increase the risk of death. President Vladimir Putin says Russia has passed the peak of coronavirus infections and has given his defense minister the go-ahead to prepare a postponed World War II parade in June. Russia has the third highest number of cases in the world, with over 362,000. And finally, the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem has reopened as the West Bank eases its lockdown.
This place is the holiest place. This place is the place where our Lord Jesus was born more than 2,000 years ago. The birth of our Lord Jesus Christ gave hope to people more than 2,000 years ago. And opening the church today, I think, will give hope to the whole world that hopefully this pandemic will end not only in Palestine but in the whole world.
Amidst lingering pandemic concerns, the church is capping access to 50 people at a time and requires that they are free of fever and wear protective masks.
Over in the UK, Junior Minister Douglas Ross has resigned after Dominic Cummings' defence of his trip to County Durham during the coronavirus lockdown in the country. The Scotland Office Minister said the senior aide's view of the government's guidance was not shared by the vast majority of people. Number 10 said the Prime Minister regretted Mr Ross's decision to stand down. It comes as 30 Tory MPs have joined those calling on Mr Cummings, who drove 260 miles in March from his London home to his parents' farm with his child and his ill wife, to resign. On the streets of London, though, opinions are divided as to whether the Prime Minister's top advisor, Dominic Cummings, should resign. Prime Minister Johnson, already facing criticism for his handling of the pandemic, has defended Mr Cummings, saying the aide had followed the instincts of every father. Many of those on the streets of North London said they believed Cummings had proved himself to be untrustworthy and found his reasoning for visiting Barnard Castle to be implausible. Others said they thought it was up to him whether he visited his family or not. Our London correspondent, Juliana Olainka, joins us now to bring us up to speed on the situation. Juliana, this situation, has been a back and forth issue since over the weekend. What are you hearing now, though? How likely is Cummings to succumb and resign?
Good afternoon, Tenny. Gosh, I would say for Dominic Cummings, unfortunately, it's less back and forth, more forward moving. We've just finished the daily coronavirus briefing here in the UK. It was held by Matt Hancock. And unfortunately for Downing Street, this situation is not going anywhere. There are two polls that media here in the UK are using. One is one that was taken just an hour after Dominic Cummings delivered what's considered a pretty extraordinary press conference yesterday in the Rose Garden of Downing Street. He is a chief political aide. The story shouldn't be about him. It should be about his employer, but it's all about him now, which is the problem. But anyway, after he gave that speech, 79% of people said they believed he did break down the lockdown rules. There's been a latest poll on YouGov where there was 59% of people believe he should resign. One of the main issues people have here is trust. Britain has the second highest death rate of COVID-19 in the entire world, and we are a pretty small country. That stay home, stay away from your relatives was taken pretty seriously by the general public. Many people were not able to see their loved ones. Many people who have serious underlying health conditions like cancer and other treatments were shying away from hospitals because of fear of COVID-19. So the fact that the Prime Minister's top aide drove over 200 miles to stay on his large family estate and another 50 miles to sit by a riverside at a popular beauty spot is just not going down with the public. Will he not resign? I'm not sure, but it's looking increasingly likely that by the end of this week, he's probably not going to be in his position.
You know, Juliana, a lot of backlash already, and it was quite surprising, the announcement of Douglas Ross' resignation this morning in protest over how this has been handled. Anyone else likely to follow suit?
Yes, no. Douglas Ross is a junior minister, but nevertheless, he's still a minister. And the fact that he resigned, really, as what some commentators were saying, is it put the rest of the government to shame. The fact that so many people have been whispering behind closed doors or lamenting on Twitter, as most of us do, rather than stand up and say that it's absolutely inappropriate. There have been a series of ministers who are key allies, clearly, of Dominic Cummings, doing the round on the media, especially the breakfast shows, defending him, saying that they would have done the same thing and that he was within the letter of the law. I'm not certain we are going to see many more resignations, but it's certainly going to get louder in terms of the criticism for Prime Minister Boris Johnson deciding to stay with him. I think right now, Tenny, everybody's looking forward to the clash tomorrow at Prime Minister's questions between Boris Johnson, who, of course, everybody knows is extremely charismatic and usually really feeds off of having his majority of MPs behind him steering him on. But he hasn't got Jeremy Corbyn now. He has the very sharp, very meticulous Sir Keir Starmer, former senior lawyer here in Britain, and he will be taking him to task. There's no doubt about that at the dispatch box. So that's going to be very, very interesting, because twice now, publicly, Boris Johnson has defended him. Let's see what he's going to be saying when he's speaking to his opposition tomorrow.
And you know, Juliana, it's not really been, an easy time for the Prime Minister. He's already facing pressure over his handling of the coronavirus pandemic. How exactly is he planning to resolve this issue, and what are his other advisors saying at the moment?
Gosh, it's a $1 million question, and unfortunately one that I don't know. This is this is a huge issue. This is an absolutely huge issue. Again, to reiterate, the fact that COVID-19 has killed officially just below 40,000, unofficially almost over 50,000 people here in the UK. We know that Prime Minister Boris Johnson was very sick. He had a lot of sympathy from the public, but there are so many reckless statements, reckless handlings of what's happened. And the fact that it now appears as if the elite can do what they want and the masses is not going to go down well, because Boris Johnson is obviously seen as a Prime Minister for the people, even though he is somebody from Eden. So yes, I definitely think that this is possibly one of the biggest political storms of the Prime Minister, because most people are saying he cannot do the job without Dominic Cummings. Not only is he a very close friend, he is a very, very chief ally.
Juliana, we have to see how, all this plays out. Thank you so much for joining us on The World Today once again. Moving over to Spain now, the government has declared a 10-day official mourning period from Wednesday to honor the nearly 30,000 people who died from the coronavirus pandemic in one of the world's worst-hit countries. Government spokeswoman said on today, during the mourning period, flags will fly at half-mast all over the country's public buildings and Navy ships. She told a news briefing after a cabinet meeting that the period will end with an official ceremony led by the head of state in remembrance of the 26,834 fatalities that have been recorded in the country. Spain has reported a total of 235,000 confirmed cases. The spokeswoman also said the Spanish Treasury would lend 14 billion euros to the state-run social security to help it face costs related to the coronavirus pandemic. Thanks for staying with us. Denmark has opened its borders not for general travel, but for couples who are separated from their partners by the coronavirus lockdown. As of Monday, cross-border couples who reside in the Nordic countries of Germany can now visit Denmark. Rules currently require people to prove their relationship with photos, text messages, and emails. But the Justice Minister has announced these regulations will be relaxed in the coming days. So all that is needed is a letter signed by both parties. A number of European countries are considering reopening Europe's internal borders as the outbreak eases. Germany has proposed allowing travel to all 26 other EU states, plus the EU and plus the UK, I beg your pardon, and non-EU countries like Iceland and Norway that are in the border-free Schengen zone from June 15. Now, doctors have accused Egypt's health ministry of negligence in its handling of COVID-19 and said it bears full responsibility for medics' deaths. A union said on Monday that 19 doctors had died so far from the disease and more than 350 others have been infected. It blamed a lack of personal protective equipment and beds for sickened staff and warned the system could collapse. The health minister insisted sufficient protection had been offered and medics had received the best possible care. Egypt, the most populous country in the Arab world, has so far reported 17,967 confirmed cases of COVID-19 and 783 deaths. Away from the COVID-19 pandemic, Hong Kong's leader Carrie Lam says other countries have no place interfering in the territory as she defends a controversial national security law planned by China. The law would ban treason, secession, sedition and subversion. Critics say it would limit the city's freedoms. But in her first public comments, Mrs. Lam said it was a responsible move to protect the law-abiding majority.
Some of the things that you have said about mainland agencies coming down to arrest people undergoing protest, and they will be arrested, the calling the chief executive to step down at the moment are your imaginations or things that have been said by some people. We are a very free society, so for the time being, people have this freedom to say whatever they want to say. But ultimately, what is to be provided in this piece of legislation is for all of us to see in order to be assured that Hong Kong's freedoms will be preserved and Hong Kong's vibrancy and core values in terms of the rule of law, the independence of the judiciary, the various rights and freedoms enjoyed by people will continue to be there.
Now, the FBI says it's investigating the death of a black man allegedly killed while being arrested in the U.S. state of Minnesota. This comes after a video emerged showing the officer kneeling on the man, an African-American's neck. The man in his 40s is heard groaning and repeatedly saying, "I can't breathe," to the officer who is white. The police department said the officer that had responded to a report of a forgery in progress. It said the man died after a medical incident in a police interaction. It's the latest accusation of U.S. police brutality against African Americans. Recent high-profile cases include an officer in Maryland who fatally shot a man inside a patrol car. Well, we have our Washington correspondent, Maria Bird, joining us now. Maria, what more do we know about this incident at the moment?
There's not much more. Obviously, the incident is very new. It's about an hour ago that we've been starting to find out more information. As you mentioned, they're claiming this is a medical incident, and there's obviously an open investigation against exactly what occurred. But as you stated, many people are stating, how is this a medical incident when the police officer had his knee on the neck of the man? That clearly indicates, and the man is actually speaking and saying that he cannot breathe. This clearly indicates that there was police brutality involved in this case as a whole. And so we'll begin to see As we all know, body cameras are on most police officers, so they'll begin to review those body cameras, even further investigation to see exactly what occurred from the moment the man said he could not breathe until his death.
You know, this raises the issue of African Americans being targeted in police brutality again. How is the police explaining this, and what moves have been made towards justice?
You know, there has been, as we know, there have been many that have been protesting against police brutality in the United States, especially as it relates to African Americans. But this is something that has to be addressed with the justice system. We know that there have been all types of sensitivity trainings for police officers to try to bring cultural awareness. But as many people have said time and time again, this is a cultural norm within the police force that has been going on for many years. And so until the culture of the police force, until there is drastic changes in the culture, we will continue to unfortunately see devastating issues such as this occurring. And so we have some real challenges that we are facing and things that are going to be addressed very soon here as a whole by the country.
Really tragic situation there. Thanks once again, Maria, for joining us on The World Today.
Thank you.
Finally, on the program, the Czech National Museum is opening an exhibition of face masks worn to protect against the infection, signaling that one day the coronavirus will be history. The government was one of the first to make it compulsory to wear a mask outside the home, with 8,725 cases and 304 deaths so far. The country is not being affected as badly as others in Europe, although opinions differ on what kind of difference masks have made in the pandemic. When the crisis began, industrially made masks were in short supply, which prompted a nationwide effort to make them at home. Curator Mira Buranova said masks were a real symbol of the situation the country is going through, and said the team behind the exhibition had made a selection from hundreds of masks sent in by the public, many with individual stories behind them. Among those on display is a mask with a map of the Prague metro made by an autistic teenager, one made by a woman for her husband from the shirt he wore on his wedding day, and one created to raise awareness about ovarian cancer by a non-profit organization. And that's the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Teniola Shoboale.